All right, you want to talk about the Rekkles drama that's going on, because the rumors are now swirling that Rekkles is out of G2.
By rumors, you mean people just say the same thing I said, like, what, a month ago or something? Am I missing something? Oh, breaking news! What Thorin said a month ago, it's right.
But you weren't right then, and the rumor accounts are right now, Thorin.
I'm never right, apparently. I've got 100% success rate, on the things I have reported, but never right. I'm always wrong. Listen, you have to understand facts.
You're so lucky.
If I'm not right, I actually am like prescient. I can see the future. So you can pick which. I'm willing to go either way that one,
Either you just are a fourth dimensional being who's just reading the future, or your rumors and reports and your sources happen to be right. What a shocking coincidence. All right. So let's talk about this, because the latest rumors are like, who wants Rekkles out of the team?
Exactly.
Now, remember, Rekkles is the reigning LEC MVP. So
from spring he was.
From spring, yeah.
Yes.
So like if he was coming in this year with such a strong performance, and I think most people, I would agree, he did have an individually strong performance in G2.
Even in summer, he had the most kills and the least deaths.
So
of anyone in the league.
Rekkles fans, I need you to understand something. If this is true, and we all agree that Rekkles is a good player, then you must admit, by his teammates wanting him out of G2, that there must be something wrong with him as a teammate. You have to admit this to yourselves right now. Okay?
They don't get as well.
Admitting it to yourself?
Think about it, right? It's not even just as simple as they make. Like, well, it's just gameplay related. Well, first of all, by the way, if it's just gameplay related, you're either admitting what this Ginger guy told you also about half a decade ago, that this player is just like incredibly set in his ways and cannot adapt to his teammates, which you all tell me is the main quality of a player. It isn't, by the way. The real secret of League of Legends is you build around the stars. You don't take caps and go, in this team, you're going to adapt and just be an Orianna only main. No, you wouldn't use caps that way, would you? So anyway, if people don't know, the joke is you just saw publicly what was wrong with people like Forgiven in their teams. You didn't see the private part, what was wrong with people like Rekkles. So first of all, it's kind of a nonsense angle anyway. But I'd also say this. It isn't just because of his play, you idiots. If it was just because of his play, by the way, it could be fixed. He could adapt his play. The reason he can't is he's I wouldn't say difficult in this. I would just say like he's got a very specific way of communicating. He needs to. By the way, it is an interesting detail I can actually relate to you. That isn't even necessarily a diss to Rekkles. In CS:GO, by the way, the greatest teams in CS:GO that were from Sweden, NIP and Fnatic. One of the reasons why they almost shared no players in their history in terms of the big names, Monty. Like Olafmeister never went and played with Get Right Forest. Like every other region, right? Eventually you mix it up. You have like so many roster shares like the French teams.
Point. I never thought about it.
Here's why. Because in Sweden, right? Because actually they tend to be conflict averse. Like, for example, famously, even in CSGO, they don't come to you and go, listen, mate, nothing personal, but we have to kick you from the team. You just come in one day and you're just like not in the fucking team speak or whatever. And then the manager guy just goes, yeah, I need to talk to you about something. And then he just tells you you're fired. And you're like, those are my brothers for like 3 years. Yeah. So here's the thing, right? In Swedish teams as well, it's all about like a comfortable social vibe. And so some of the greatest teams ever have always stressed having a social fit. It's why also you'll notice they tend to hang on to some of the big names for way too long. They just stay together with like a little core pack, and maybe they change one or two players, but they never change the pack no matter how bad someone gets, because their whole vibe is like, I don't want it to be like pro soccer, where it's like, right, this guy's from Brazil and this guy's from Poland and this guy's from fucking Russia. Let's just hope they figure it out because they're pros. They want the vibe to be like, I need to be comfortable. I've got to like these guys. I've got to have a similar sense of humor to them so they don't annoy me when we're on the road. And so I actually feel like if you look at Rekkles' career, he's just in vein with what the Swedish players are like, actually. Like, that's actually just their demeanor. Whereas the problem is this, that's very unique for European League of Legends, actually. European League of Legends is, I take a guy from Croatia, a fucking whining guy from France, I take a toxic fuck from Greece, the junglers from Spain, I do just throw them all in there. First of all, they probably can't even communicate the first few days. Then they just flame each other, so it solves all the problems. And then eventually, you hope, like, like some Lord of the Flies shit, like a hierarchy just emerges from it. So I feel as though, actually, in that sense, Rekkles is actually a very unique sort of star in that sense. Like, if I was going to be mean, I'd just say he's a bit of a princess, He's a bit like ochs and CSGO. If you don't know, everything has to be his fucking way, and everyone has to dance to his jig. But you can also just say it as, unlike other players, you can't just drop him in and plug and play. Like, you can in terms of he'll play well, but he might not play the way your team needs. So I think you do have to build a whole team around him, which they didn't do in G2, obviously. They just brought him literally to plug and play.
Well, why would you build an entire team around him when you have Caps? Like,
G2's the only team it wasn't justified to do. Any other European team, you wouldn't you? Like, if I was in Fnatic, by the way, if they'd have re-signed him, I would have just kicked half of him if it was causing problems, It would make sense.
What I think is so interesting about this situation too is that Rekkles by doing this, like as a pro player, when you go into a new team environment, keeping in mind that many of your new teammates have been playing together for a number of years right now. I mean, you've got four, you're the new guy in this environment. So it's kind of up to you to figure out where you fit in, maybe like lay low for a while, try and get the, understand the vibe that you're walking into, right? Because he made this decision at the last second and left Fnatic high and dry. And the thing about Fnatic is that was his show. He was running that team. He was the poster child of Fnatic, and he chose to throw that away. So in this environment, if you're going to G2, well, you're the new guy. You have to fit in. Sounds like he wasn't fitting in with his teammates. So what the fuck do you do now if you're Rekkles? Like, you could have stayed in Fnatic until the end of your career very, very easily. Like, he could have fallen off a cliff in terms of skill, and he still would have been there because he was so important to the overall Fnatic brand. Now, do I think Fnatic's going to take him back at this point in time? I wouldn't. If I was them, I'd still be pretty pissed about what happened. I don't think Fnatic needs him. Yeah, Upset's really good, right? Like, you don't need him. Yep. Fnatic's doing just fine. They made Worlds. G2 did not. So, like, why would you bring Rekkles back? And so, what do you do now if you're Rekkles? Like, maybe he's got a shot to go to like a team like BDS that has a lot of money, because BDS is owned by like the richest guy in Belgium, and they're throwing money left and right. They just bought that spot for $28 million. Maybe they want a face of the team, but like, regardless, you're going into
the rumor was Vitality, like the whole thing of like maybe they're blocking him, because everyone, again, they should know by now if they listen to my talk shows, Vitality has money to spend. Like, there's the rumor I heard in the offseason was maybe they had a super team with perks, like they were willing to spend a lot. So I would imagine they are at it. By the way, here's what I'll do. There's one of my skills is I read between the lines and I know things behind the scenes. So here's what I'll just say right now. I suspect personally the fact that all of a sudden out of nowhere, theoretically credible journalists start reporting like Carlos is blocking him moving to Vitality. Well, who do you think that could be coming from? Who would benefit the most from that information getting out there? It's Vitality, isn't it? Like, I would not be surprised whatsoever, because I know in CSGO they do that. They have certain connections with journalists who just suspiciously say things at the right time that push and pull certain things. That sounds to me like they... Like maybe the rumor is he won't let them go there, and so what you do is you test it, you stress test it by putting it out there, and then you make Carlos have to say, like he did, I won't stop him going there, whatever, in like an abstract way, So like, there's always some industry fuckery going on in there. In CSGO, we've had a lot of that.
Half the leaks you guys see are oftentimes made by the players or their agents themselves, just like seeing what's possible or trying to apply exterior pressure onto a situation. Like, it happens in sports too, like traditional sports. So
it makes sense.
It's just the same bullshit that goes around.
Imagine me and you are two like really good junglers competing for a spot, and at the moment the org hasn't decided, they could go either way. But imagine the rumor comes out that like I'm joining, and maybe actually fans fuck with me. So then all of a sudden all the response like, oh fuck yeah, this would be amazing, yeah, gotta do this. Like, that'll influence it. That could potentially influence the org. That could be, and by the way, similarly, all of a sudden all the analysts are giving their thoughts. Maybe they're like, wow, it's what an incredible move. I never thought they'd have the balls to go for that move. That, again, people think that like, oh, orgs aren't influenced by that. They're just people, Social like components are like real, That's like social proof in a way. So I think that's totally legit. Here's the thing I thought was most interesting about this story was, first of all, this was basically going to happen. I just had to phrase it as I heard, because that's the nature of it hasn't happened yet, and you have to be careful as a journalist, very careful with your wording, as a certain shithead sheep hasn't figured out yet. So when you do this, right, I actually could have just said, I know Rekkles is getting kicked, but I had to say I heard. So what was great is one of those anonymous leakers, because he didn't A, have that rumour, and B, didn't have any additional information. Well, how was he just going to say, Thorin's right? So what he did was, he like confirmed my report, Monty, but then just put like, but nothing's been decided yet. Well, listen, I'm going to say this right now. It's very rare you can ever say this. My sources are better than yours. I can tell you that on this one. My sources are better. And here's what I love. The new information that's just been brought out by Bloop was that it's Caps and Jankos who are going to sign again. Anyone on my Discord knows I've told you that. And also that they're the ones who sort of don't want to play with Rekkles, right? So all I'm going to say is this, fans, right? Why does Caps fucking hate Rekkles? He's a good ADC. And Jankos, did Rekkles fuck his girlfriend? What an unreasonable set of statements, right? But that's what you guys tell me every time I tell you that I wouldn't want to play with Rekkles, or maybe there's problems with him as a teammate. All I'll say is this, probably the greatest Western player of all time of a jungler just goes, yeah, I don't want to play with Rekkles.
Who's also
Caps,
notoriously like laid back, like Jankos is just chill as fuck. So
there's very few people who wouldn't play with. It's basically forgiven and reckless. Oh, isn't that fucking rich? Did I just say it out loud? The list's forgiven and reckless. Woo! You guys can decide what number. That's the list of players Jankos doesn't want to play with. And then the other part is Caps already played with him once. So you know what? Caps was like, you know what, Rekkles? Fool me once, shame on me. Fool me twice, get the fuck out now. I'll never play with you again. And where's Perks' number? And listen, Jankos, how much are you getting? Like, if we put 4 million together, can we get him again? Can he come? Like, mate, this is mental, isn't it? Like, because what people also don't realise, and I think this is actually a pretty bold statement. I actually think this move's gangster as fuck from G2, by the way. Essentially, what they're saying is, objectively, bearing in mind, you can't get upset. I personally think Hans Sammer sometimes gets a bit overrated, but okay, he was in the mix as well. Rogue's not going to sell him, and quite frankly, he probably wouldn't leave. He's also at Worlds. Basically, unless, like, this isn't happening, you could get, like, Doublelift to come out of retirement and come over. You're just saying, like, I actually dislike Rekkles so much, I'm going to downgrade at the position and think that'll make me a better team. I didn't say it. Their actions did, didn't they? Like, logically, who are they getting? Who are they getting? Like, you know?
Maybe they could lure upset over from Fnatic at this point in time. Who knows?
The thing is, though, dude, as mad as it sounds, I actually think this is one of the reasons I wrote that piece at the beginning of the year when I heard that upset was going, where I basically told him, like, don't be like Rekkles. Don't just think, oh, he's got a super team, it's unfair. It's like, no, he does. He has a better set of teammates, but you have good enough teammates. You have teammates where, in theory, if you were like the MVP of the league, you could beat him. And if you do that, I even said this in the article, mate, then you just cock him completely. You took a worse version of his old team, which he actually did in the summer, and then you're beating him with it, and you're going further in the league. And so basically, I actually think Upset does actually have that mentality. I don't think he wants to just hop straight to G2. I think now he's got a team that's like, it's good enough. It might not be the best. It's good enough, though, to win. I think that's where you actually show if you're a truly great player. Because I personally, in sports in general, I hate the sort of like ring chase and where you all gather together and make a super team. I like the idea that, like, if I'm really the best, well, first of all, mate, I know they didn't win LEC, but imagine if he'd have won LEC and the G2 super team existed. Like, you can't talk shit to me forever now, mate. Like, you were all in one team and I win the LEC. Like, that's what I think Upset's on. So personally, I actually think Upset just stays put. You know?
Sure. I mean, I think that's probably the most likely course of action, but where else do you go? Like Crown Shot, Cars, like, you know.
It's hard, right? Yeah, you're not really going to it's just, that's why I say it's going to be a downgrade logic in terms of the individual position. Want to see more cool, funny, interesting clips based on topics from my content? Well, subscribe to this channel then, or, you know, be a pleb and don't.